Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm really on time watch reviews. I'm Chris. I unbox and review budget watches. And today we're going to take a look at, because of my new friend Hi over at the Boldr Watch Company, another Boldr watch. This is the Boldr Vogelkop. It is a very interesting watch. This is way out of my wheelhouse as far as design and everything, but I'm going to give an honest assessment. And because I am not a minimalist, I'm not used to, nor do I have any kind of excitement, real excitement for this style of watch, I am enlisting a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, and I'm sure a friend of yours if you are a watch enthusiast and watch a lot of channels. Norman from the channel Killing Time with Norman is going to discuss this Vogelkop with me. He is a person who enjoys minimalist designs. I do not, so I want to talk to him about the design elements of this watch and get his honest take on it. I've sent him pictures, sent some video. He saw the unboxing video. We're going to have a conversation about this. I'll give you my likes and my gripes about this particular watch as well. Fairly popular watch. Their first batch is completely sold out. It is scheduled to be re-released this fall in September. And so let's talk about that. Let's talk about this Vogelkop by Boldr coming up now on Really On Time Watch Reviews. Okay guys, because we have a special guest on today's episode, I'm going to be talking with Norman about the minimalist design. I just want to do a quick overview of this watch and the time that I have spent with it. In the unboxing, you would have seen you do get a really nice travel case with the watch. You get a little polishing cloth and a booklet that will have your warranty card information in it. And of course, the watch. And so this is something that I am not into. I'm going to be honest with you. This minimalist design isn't something that I'm into, so I can only talk about the quality of the watch. And, you know, that's about it, because I'm not a real huge fan of this design. And there are some things that I can discuss in regards to my likes and my gripes. So this is a quality made timepiece. Boldr makes fantastic watches. Let's just kind of go over some of the basic specifications as a reminder. The watch does cost $449 US. It is out of stock currently, but they are going to be re-releasing these in the first part of September, first week of September, so around September 8th, these will be available again. The first batch sold out, so there are a lot of people that do love this minimalist design, and I can't knock them for that. It's just not my style. So you do have a PVD coating on the entire watch. It is constructed all of stainless steel, bezel, crown, everything, which has been PVD coated. As you can see, the bracelet does have a nice milled clasp on it with a fold-over security and dual deployment nice milled clasp. You can see it's got the exhibition case back. Really nice to see. They have quick release spring bars, so you can easily change this bracelet out. Has solid links, of course solid end links. Just push pins for this bracelet to adjust it, but they're not hard to adjust at all. Now in the unboxing video, someone had caught that the bracelet looked a little bit, I can't remember the exact wording they used, but just a little bit weak. It did come and the links were a little bit locked up just from the shipping in the box, but it does integrate quite nicely. Hasn't gotten stuck on me or stiffed up at all since I have had time with this watch. You do have a 40 by 20, so 40 millimeter case, 20 millimeter at the lugs, water resistance 200 meters. You have a screw down crown, which you can see is signed by the Boldr logo there. The hands are custom hands with the Vogelkop, what they call Blue Japan Superluminova. We'll get to the lume in just a moment. The hands themselves, if I can zoom in just a moment, they're like a bead blasted finish around the hands, and that Japan Superluminova is filling them, as well as these two dots here. It does have a 120 click unidirectional bezel with a coin edge on it. I'll let you listen to the bezel now. Definitely a solid enough bezel. Clicks are very distinct. There's no back play once the click locks in place. Now there are no markers other than the two dots at the top to, distinguish it whether it lines up or not. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. The bezel itself is brushed, has a circular brushed finish on it, and of course that PVD coating on it as well. The crystal is a sapphire crystal. A flat piece of sapphire crystal with double AR coating. There's AR coating on both sides, so there's plenty of AR coating. And this dial, obviously it's a minimalist dial. Can't really talk too much about it. It is covered with a special kind of paint, like a musso paint. I can't remember exactly what it is called. But it is a paint, I think it's mousse, I don't know how to pronounce it, Musuo black dial. It's a special kind of paint that absorbs well over 90% of the light, so it is quite black. Maybe not as apparent or visible under the studio lighting that I have, but it really is a sharp, crisp, clean black dial, and obviously those white hands jump out at you for that. So yeah, forgot to mention it is just over 12 millimeters thick from the back of the case back to the top of the crystal, and you have a 45.5, it does say 46 millimeters lug to lug. So this is a very wearable watch. It will fit quite nicely on all sides of wrists. You do have a Seiko NH35 in this one, but the newer ones are updated with the Seiko NH38A, which is nice because those ones will have a movement that doesn't have the ghost position. This particular model that I have, one of their first versions, does have a ghost position on the movement. So very reliable movement. You guys all know about the Seiko NH movements. They, of course, this one does have the ghost position. The movement will hack when you pull it out to the final position, and of course self-winds when you are wearing it, and you can manually wind it by turning the crown clockwise. The crown on this, there's some nice knurling on it. It is a little bit smaller than some of the other crowns on Boldr that I have seen, and it is a little bit trickier to manipulate because of how close in proximity it is to those coin edge on the bezel. But guys, I gotta say, this is a solid watch, and Boldr has made a really nice offering here. And if you are into the minimalist design, then this is a fantastic watch for you. So let me just get into quickly my likes and my gripes about the watch itself. I find it I think it's a well-made piece. Let me just say that. It is a well-made watch. Boldr makes some fantastic watches, and so I'm not into minimalist design, so I can't say that I personally like the look of this watch, but I can say it is a quality piece. Sapphire crystal with double AR coating. The lume is fantastic. You have a nice screw down crown. It's well finished with that PVD coating on it. The research that I've done in regards to this PVD coating, it'll last in normal wear at least 10 years before you start to see any changes to it or chipping or whatever. And so, yeah, you know, I just got to hand it to Boldr. They make really, really nice pieces. I'm going to be talking to Norman in just a moment, and that conversation, I don't know how long it is, but just stick around for the conversation. I'm also going to upload it as a separate video, just the conversation with Norman, but we're going to talk a little bit about it. So I can't really say that I like the watch in regards to the design, but I like the watch in regards to the quality. It is well made. I'm not sure that it was necessary to have drilled lugs since it does have quick release spring bars. Love to see that. Definitely a fantastic thing to have. And you can see the display case back as well. Again, well made, well spec'd out. So here are just my gripes, okay? This crown, the engagement is okay, and you would have seen on the up close and personal, and you can see it now. This is actually just the way that this coin edge is. When you're turning the crown in or untwisting it, this is kind of gross, but that's like my skin there, skin cells or whatever. They're getting trapped in that coin edge bezel. So I think if the crown was just a hair bigger, or the bezel didn't maybe come out as far, just so that there wasn't, with that PVD coating, you're going to see absolutely every little fleck or speck, and you can see just some flecks off of my skin, even on top of the lugs there. So it's kind of gross. So I'm not so sure about that. Crown action is good. Display case back. You know, if you're going to have a display case back, I would rather see the movement itself decorated a little bit rather than the display case back, which just gets in the way of seeing the movement. The bezel on this, the action on it is fine, but I just don't understand the point of having a timing bezel on a watch with, you know, no markings whatsoever on it. That part of the design, I simply don't get. And I will say that the bracelet, although solid, just isn't as solid as the other one that I had. I had the Boldr Odyssey Freediver, and it had a really, really solid, nice thick bracelet. No screw pins on this one, which would have been nice to see, just push-pull pins. Overall, the bracelet is good. It's just not as good as the other piece that I had. And I think for me, $450 USD for this watch is a little bit overpriced. Although I can't knock them for selling it at that price, especially since they are selling out. So that's it. That's my likes and my gripes. Let me show you the lume shot and the wrist shot. The lume on this watch is absolutely fantastic, and it is a Japanese Super Luminova. And just as a reminder, any lume, as far as these time-lapse videos that last less than 5 minutes, is terrible. Up to 10 minutes, you know, is fair. Up to 15 minutes is okay. Up to 20 minutes and beyond is good lume. And then, you know, when you get to the 30-minute mark, excellent lume. And as you can see, as we go through this time-lapse video, this makes it to that 30-minute mark. This has absolutely excellent lume. And so good for Boldr for putting such great lume on their watch yet again. And here's what it looks like on my 7.5-inch wrist. If you like minimalist watches, it really does kind of remind me with those two dots, if you leave them up top, kind of a bit of a Movado vibe to this watch. Minimalist watches are very popular, and if you're into this kind of watch, consider Boldr. They make fantastic pieces. This is yet another one. So, guys, thanks so much for tuning back in. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. Let me know what you think of this watch and minimalist designs because, I'm not into them, but if you are, I'd love to hear your take on them. And thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for, my conversation with Norman about minimalist design watches. That's coming up right now. And again, it'll be uploaded as a separate video. But thanks so much for watching. Here comes my conversation with Norm. Here we go. Well, everybody, as I mentioned, I'm bringing on my pal Norman from the channel Killing Time with Norman. Please, if you haven't subscribed to Norman's channel yet, head on over to it. I'll leave a link in the description of this video and give Norman some love and subscribing. Great content, great channel, really knowledgeable about watches and things. And because I am not into this kind of design from the minimalist design that Boldr has put out here with this Vogelkop, wanted to talk to Norman about this particular design because he has some minimalist watches. He does enjoy them. And this one did sell out, Norman, and they're re-releasing it. So there is something to be said about this design cue. So first of all, let me begin by I sent Norman some pictures. He saw the unboxing video. I don't know if I sent you a video clip other than just the unboxing video, but what was your first impressions of this particular piece, the Vogelkop by Boldr?
Sure. And before I dive into that really quickly, Unimatic is another interesting super minimalist brand, and I think their stuff's blowing up too. So there's definitely interest out there for that. When I saw this watch, first thing that struck me is I really love the handset they went with. That seconds hand looks amazing in the sea of blackness there. Yeah. And just the zero markers on the dial. It's so extreme that it's intriguing, kind of like a museum watch, I've always liked somewhat minimalist watches because I'm a dress watch nerd. So, right, your dress watches, a lot of them are Bauhaus inspired, whether they're actually Bauhaus or not, right? They're just thin batten markers, and maybe they aren't Bauhaus because they're glossy, they're applied, they're fancy and pretty, but ultimately, right, that design cue is a Bauhaus design cue. And I was never really interested in the Movado Museum, except that it's so extreme that I really wanted to see one in person. And that's what drew me to extreme minimalism, is just like, that is like such a no-no. I want to see one in person. And I ended up loving it. And so I do appreciate that extreme, like break the rules, minimal dial. And the hands look brilliant with it. The case shape and the crown are amazing on this, apart from its minimalism. However, I feel like when I'm looking at it, I feel like it's kind of at a cross purpose in that, and I'm shocked that they're selling so well. That's awesome. And I know Unimatic does as well too, but to me, I feel like minimalism is much more at home with dress watches, because when you look at sports watches or tool watches, it's kind of in the name. We think of them more as a tool than just a nice looking timepiece. With dress watches, it's just a nice looking watch. Yeah, it tells the time, but I don't need to know exactly what time it is. It's 5:15-ish. Yeah. Whereas when you put a bezel on something, you're implying that you're actually timing something.
Yeah, and that's
what do you get a time on that bezel on that dial?
Yeah, and the bezel action on this one, as per my review, is okay. It's not super fantastic, but one of the gripes that I have about this design-wise, aside from the fact that I'm not a minimalist and it's just like, it's not in my wheelhouse, I just didn't understand having a timing bezel on a watch that has absolutely no markers on it whatsoever. Yeah. So I'm kind of wondering, and Hai would be able to answer, the owner of the company might be able to answer this question, but like with the two dots, to me, it kind of gives, if you just leave the bezel and, leave the dots at the top at the 12, there would be maybe some Movado vibes with that. But as a
in
functional bezel, it just doesn't make sense to me. But
yeah, and in mentioning that, you kind of made me think of something. So, my thoughts on that watch, like, I feel like it would look really great if it had maybe like an Explorer bezel versus a timing bezel, just a nice angled bezel on the edge there. So it's just a minimal sporty watch. However, if it had a fixed bezel, you could do something really cool and give it really tiny batten markers at the hours. So the bezel is actually your hour markers. And inside it, you have this completely empty dial, which actually could look really cool.
Yeah.
But I feel like that design is great, but I don't know about the bezel. I feel if it had like an Explorer bezel, it'd be a brilliant looking watch as far as minimalism goes.
Yeah.
And maybe take the 2 dots and move those onto the bezel, onto the dial, which would make it even more Movado-y. But with the 2 dots, it has some uniqueness to it still.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, that was one of the, I could get used to just the minimalist look. I have a friend that really, really loves this watch.
Nice.
He would have bought it, other than it's just a little bit out of his price range. And because this is a watch that I could get a bit of a discount with it for my friend, but at $449, I struggle with that only because of the Seiko NH35 movement in it. But if you can't discredit the owner of the company if he's selling out at that price, and why would you lower it? I mean, he's what is it about this particular design that you think is so attractive to certain people? Like for me, my first love is chronograph watches because I love a busy watch. I just like to look at something and go, you feel like, there's something to engage with on it. On this one, it's like,
what You're at a complete loss.
I am, but I understand that it's a thing that other people, like, what do you think it is about minimalist watches that's so attractive to people?
Well, I feel like it might be twofold. Like with this watch, I feel like part of it might just be intrigue because it's so extreme, kind of like the museum. It's something that is so far minimal that it shouldn't even exist. And secondly, I think with minimalism in general, it's a very unforgiving design. You have to your design has to really be on point, Yeah. Whereas if you have a lot of details going on, you could kind of forgive like markers that are too short because you don't even notice them amid the sub dials or whatever else. But when all you have on your dial are batten markers, every like minute detail about those needs to be dialed in or it'll look weird. I think that's another reason, and maybe another reason why minimalism is kind of a dress watch area, where it's all about the design subtly. Those are the two things that for me, I think draw me to minimalism is the extremeness and just the raw. I mean, you're putting yourself out there. It's wide open. There's nothing to distract your eyes from any mistake or bad choice you did with your design. Yeah,
you can't. I mean, there isn't much to talk about.
Like if those two dots, those 2 dots were like further apart maybe, and they just look weird, there aren't other markers there to draw your eye away from that. It's just a huge eyesore if you screw up your design.
Yeah, unless they maybe did something like having, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud, and I don't know how visually it would look, but like a dot at every quarter.
Mm-hmm.
That it would actually function as somewhat of a bezel, at least a 15-minute timer.
I have a piece like that.
Yeah, show me some of because you do have some minimalist pieces. So maybe people can pause and zoom in or whatever on their browser. But what's this one?
So this is a vintage Certina, and it's minimalist in the center, but you'll notice that there's markers around the edge. So it's still functional, but the overall aesthetic to this is very bare bones with just the quarter markers. And then I have the museum, which I'll take off so I can get it closer. The ultimate in minimalism. I mean, if they got rid of the dot and made this a one-hander, this would probably be the most minimal watch ever in the world. And then I have one more. Sadly, the battery is dead in it, but it's a Projects watch. This is that brand where they hire artists outside of watchmaking, just fine artists and stuff. They hire them to design watches. And so this is one of their Bauhaus mystery dial watches. So the red seconds hand is on a clear disc and will kind of float on there.
Oh, neat.
But sadly, this is a battery eater. I've already changed the battery on this once and it just died again. And I've had it for a year and a half. So that's kind of rough. But those are probably my most minimal pieces. Other than that, it's just dressy, style minimal, Bauhaus, batten markers, two-handers, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I do kind of dig the black and white. I think that's a good choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know, and maybe your opinion here, like obviously there's the only white is on the handset and the two dots, but I kind of feel like it's too much black. But that's just personal preference speaking. I don't know what else you might do. Maybe add a little bit of white or something to go along that on the bracelet. It would definitely give it a more sporty look, which seems to be what they're trying to do kind of with this watch as far as, the case shape and the aesthetic of it. But
it is. I agree. It is a lot of black. It might be cool if it had kind of a slightly larger bevel to the crystal, and if it had like a hue, kind of a Milgauss type of aesthetic where you have a green hue that shows up within that bevel, but the rest of the crystal is, totally translucent. Something like that would be kind of cool because it's still super minimal, but you actually have a touch of color and some more interest in there without compromising that minimalness.
That would be interesting for sure. I've enjoyed my time with the piece. I mean, it's aside from there's some little quirks with it. The bezel action on it it passes, but it doesn't feel overly solid. Just very light on the clicking.
Okay. Yeah.
And it does have a screw down crown, but it's a little trickier to engage because this bezel does kind of overlap a little bit on the case with the crown. And
I can see that in the pictures.
And I don't know if you can see this on camera or not. Probably not. I'll see if I can. But do you see that little bit of? That's like my skin cells or something. I think from just when So these are a little bit gritty. The teeth on the bezel. I mean, it's okay. It's really easy to grip, but when I unscrewed the crown, I found like it'll clean off this stuff, but it's getting some of my skin. I think it's my skin.
And it'll be interesting to see when that gets banged up and some of the black is coming off. And
now it's not a DLC; it's a PVD coating.
Okay.
I don't know do you know the difference between the two, diamond like carbon and the PVC?
I do not offhand. That is, to be honest, that's a topic that I had pondered digging into a little bit and doing a video on at some point, but I have not done that yet. I think that one of them is better at retaining the color. Like it doesn't come off as easily. You really have to gouge it, I think.
Yeah.
But I could be totally wrong.
Yeah. I had to look it up myself and for educational purposes for the both of us online. PVD stands for physical vapor deposition.
Mm.
So the material is vaporized and deposited on the base or substrate material, in this case, steel, bonding molecularly with the base material. PVD is very durable and attractive as a watch case and bracelet finish.
Okay.
I guess that would be similar to maybe how they do some of the fake gold on this. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But certainly with the black, that's what it is. Physical, what did I say? Physical vapor deposition.
Okay.
Or, vaporized and deposited. So that would be the deposition aspect. And yeah, interesting. And I know I had, I haven't really owned any PVD coated watches except for maybe one. And it would be interesting as a daily wear to see how durable the coating is. I don't wear any of my watches on a daily basis. They kind of are on a rotation. And so,
yeah, same. Yeah.
I mean,
it might be intriguing with this watch because it's so minimal. If someone did wear it as a daily wear when you start, if you start getting some of the base metal showing through, could be interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. Obviously, it would just be a silver, steel.
Yep.
So I don't know if it would have quite like a patina effect like a bronze would. Or anything like that.
But it would have like the real rugged look to it when it starts getting that showing through, like an old, military watch that's seen a bit of action and kind of looks cool because you've got these roughed up areas and just makes it look really rugged.
Yeah, and I know from the research I've done on the PVD, and the only thing I can compare it to is like the low lead brass on Timex, which is often a coating. Okay. I think. Don't quote me on that, but according to
don't quote any of this. This entire conversation is totally like non-quotable. We're all just talking out of our mouths.
Yeah, but the PVD coating, now it did say on the website with normal watch care, which I assume would be, maybe cleaning the watch occasionally to get the sweat and grease and whatnot off of your watch. Should last 10 or more years for sure.
Okay.
So I know on my one Timex that I was my daily wear for a heck of a long time. The low lead brass, or whatever coating that they put on the low lead brass, there was a coating on it and it started to come off, and I should maybe try and add a picture or something like that to this video. But it does kind of look like a patina effect, but when you get real close to it, it's not very attractive. The metal is definitely corroded or corroding. But that watch I wore for at least 10 years.
Nice.
As the only watch I wore. So yeah, the durability on it, I think, should be good as long as you don't.
We definitely need to see a picture of that watch. That's awesome.
Yeah.
10 years of just daily use.
And I've got, still have it. I've replaced the battery in it, and I've had the watch been married 25 years. It was a Christmas gift fairly early on. So it's 20 years plus old. Timex Expedition, with a digital and analog display. I got the original stainless steel bracelet on it still, and it still keeps good time. Like,
great.
I think I'm on the third battery, and third battery in 20 plus years. So
nice.
Yeah, I was wondering if I could send it to somewhere to get the coating kind of fixed on it, because it's a fantastic watch. I mean, it's and sentimental because it was a Christmas gift for my wife. But I'll shoot up a picture.
Yeah, definitely.
At the very least, I'll snap one and I'll send it to you so you can see it.
Yeah.
This one had a coating on it, and the coating has worn away, and I don't know if it was If it's the low lead brass underneath that coating, I suspect that it is.
Yeah.
It does look kind of icky.
Yeah.
But at any rate, yeah. All right,
Great.
man. Well, thanks so much for this this little conversation about minimalism. I mean, again, I kind of struggled when I first looked at the watch because I've been like, what am I going to say about this? Because I just personally don't like it. I can say though, aside from some of the minor gripes that I have about the watch, it's solid. Like Boldr makes really, really solid, well-made pieces. The loom on this is incredibly good. Like they have been knocking it out of the park with their pieces, and people are.
I see their stuff come through all the time. I actually haven't seen one in person. I may have to reach out to them and see if I could get one in the flesh. But from everything that I've seen, they look absolutely invincible, just tanks of watches.
Yeah, and the one that I had, the Odyssey Freediver, trying to remember the size of it. I mean, it was definitely a good size watch. It would be a 7-inch wrist plus for sure. Under that, maybe 7 1/4 would be the ideal, and bigger would be the ideal wrist size for it. But it was solid. Like it was a fantastic watch, and the loom on it, absolutely insane. It had, I think it had the best loom I've ever seen on a watch.
Oh, nice.
Correctly. Like on time lapse video, it lasted 30 plus minutes, which I haven't seen in a watch yet.
Wow. Yeah, that's super impressive.
It was insane. And the handset on it was so thick and big, with the loom that it had on it, like it was absolutely crystal clear, legible. Like, I could wake up at, 6 in the morning and just kind of, still, like it was awesome. So, I mean, my kudos goes out to Hai, and the brand that he's built, because he's making some great pieces. And like I said, this one, even though I still think it's a tad overpriced, he's selling out, and people are loving his watches. So good for him.
He's absolutely.
He's definitely established himself in this brand quite well. And I just give him props for that, for sure.
Yep. Awesome.
Well, Norma,
hey, thanks so much for having me. This was super fun.
Dude, absolutely. And I'm probably going to have it as 2 separate videos. I'll include this in the review video, but I'll also include this as a kind of a separate conversation video as well, in case people...
I feel like it's a pretty complete video, actually. A pretty complete discussion about it. So, that would go very well as a follow-up to the review. Yeah, and like, how reviews go, people will watch like a few minutes of it, and people will end up only watching a few minutes of this conversation. Some of the more loyal ones will watch the whole thing, and So anyways, guys, this is Norman from Killing Time with Norman, good pal of mine in this watch collecting journey and community. Once again, please go subscribe to his channel if you haven't done so yet. I think you'll really enjoy what he does. Thanks again, Norman, for joining me and talking about this Boldr Safari Vogelkop. It was great to have you on. Absolutely, anytime.
All right, thanks, pal.
Yep.